Okay, Shay, we're coming off a really great episode with Luann Nagara. So much great stuff came out in terms of leadership and being solution oriented in your business. And so I think now is a great time to come back to kind of our vocabulary of growth markers, those inevitable challenges that we face in business that can either stop you or propel you to adapt, change, grow. And I think that you're someone who's so great at approaching those in your business. So the question for me is, how do you know when you're at one? I don't think a challenge slaps you over the face and said, this is your opportunity to grow in business.
Yeah, totally. Usually I feel like it's in those pockets where just the problems start piling up, where you're like, okay, something has to change. And, then you start diving into the weeds and kind of analyzing what's going on and in live time trying to solve what that problem is. And there's so many variations of those problems, different problems. The problems never end. Let's just say that.
Inefficiencies can be those problems. What about like the ego hits, oh no, I'm not doing this again. That kind of feeling can kind of give you a heads up that you're in a growth marker potentially. What does that usually feel like for you? And how do you identify when you're going to make that change?
In terms of feeling, it doesn't feel good. It never feels good when you're in a growth marker. Let's just say that. I would say that, everyone probably handles these differently, but I'll profile probably what happens to myself and Evelyn. I'm sure you have your own take on when we hit these, because usually Evelyn's like the main call that she gets. But, there's low sleep. Your brain is just on fire, as I would say. The bathroom shower power sessions of just strategic thought, that's like really where I get my like calm down time, water's running down. You're just like thinking through everything that's going on. And the biggest thing is I'm not placing blame on anyone. It feels terrible. My brain's on fire. I am trying to just comb through what's going on and what strategy I need to implement to help my team around me succeed.
Let's not forget the paper plate session. I got screenshots and photos of just paper plates scattered on a counter in one growth marker of how we were going to make the changes and adapt. Whatever works for you in your brain.
It's really what's ever around you at the time. I think that was 11 p.m. I couldn't sleep. I'm in my kitchen and there were just a stack of paper plates. And I was like, let me just try and get this out of my brain and start organizing this. So yes, it was a collage of paper plates, of a picture of paper plates I sent to Evelyn, but
we made it work. Unfortunately, maybe to some, growth markers will show up at every single stage. From day one in your business until the day you retire, you are going to meet challenges. You are going to hit these growth markers, and hopefully, especially with great resources and podcasts available to you, you're going to move past them. So Shay, what did that look like for you? And what are you seeing as kind of the trends for designer business owners and the growth markers they inevitably hit?
Yeah, in the beginning, going back to that term, like accidental business owner, a lot of designers kind of fall into doing business for themselves. I feel like more often than not, you meet, the accidental over the intentional. They really started that journey and were looking for work and looking for processes in the beginning. I think that has advantages and disadvantages. But in the beginning, you're really just trying to figure it out, and you're waiting for your next lead. You're waiting to close your next job. Everything feels very anxious at that time. Like, when is the next dollar going to come in? And as a result, the pricing model is typically problematic, and the systems and processes aren't consistent because, again, we're just trying to figure it out. So I would say
it's all in your brain. You've been doing it. When you're the one man show, it's all up here, and that's fine. That works for you up until growth marker number, whatever it is for you, that it can't all happen in your brain anymore, and you can't do it alone anymore. And now how are you translating that to the next person who's supposed to help you?
Yeah, so hard. I usually tell people when I'm coaching them to, like, you're in the chaos, you're needing support, but we don't have all the foundational things that we need to really succeed in delegation is very stressful. And when you're that one person show and you're going to delegate, I say, your brain is the smartest piece of technology you will never have to pay for. If your to-do list has 50 things on it, your brain is wicked smart. It's going to cut out all the organization that you need to do to support your team because you're just going to get it done as fast as possible. So instead of sourcing with logic and organizing those selections with maybe, second or third options to showcase the client after rejections to be able to do a live revision, you are typically flying by the seat of your pants, throwing that design together from sourcing to presentation boards, and then the mess starts to happen because as the client's, approving, you're pricing things, you're revising on feedback, you're often doing more revision loops than you need because you're not organized and you're not prepared. And then it continues to trickle because it's not really a matter of if something's going to arrive damaged. It's just really how many things are going to arrive damaged. And when you're not organized, and you can't find the bill of lading to communicate like where this thing is to the receiver, and there's no tracking link, or it's supposed to arrive and it's not there, it just blows up your whole day when you have no support.
Yeah. And we're kind of moving ahead to that growth marker of when your pipeline is full and you just simply can't do it alone anymore. But let's also not forget about the growth marker when you're starting out and that pipeline is not full and you're looking around like, okay, I better go get out there in my community, in my market, and network. And I feel like that's a big one too, because many designers don't love to talk about themselves, don't love to sell themselves, and have to learn that the hard way through experience. And that's something that you're so great at. I think you could share some wisdom here.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing too that I think happens in the beginning because we're so worried about that next lead, that next job, is once we do get consumed and once we do know that we need support, what's happening that you don't realize is you're pulling yourself out of the game, because what got you all those leads and all those jobs was you in whatever you were doing, right? Whether it was referral. I mean, this industry is very heavily a network-based business. I could go on for so long about this. We won't stray. Future episode for sure. But the problem is they get very busy. Then they pull themselves out of the business. They get stuck 100% in the business. And then when they go to delegate, they're feeling like it's requiring more than it's worth. Which in certain regards, the answer is, yeah, it's going to feel that way, because if you don't have a documented process, if you don't have the tools to give your team to succeed, it certainly is going to take longer to get that grooving and going. The first task, the first one you delegate might take a little longer. There are ways to shortcut that. And we talk about that with the team,
I hear designers all the time. I could do this faster. Yes, but you delegate once. You do it yourself every single time. Take the time, teach someone, get them to understand your brain, and then you don't have to do it again next time. But it's so hard when you're underwater.
Longest time the first time, half as much time the second time, by the third time you're cruising. And if you need to spend the time to create those processes, then you want to further capitalize on that time and have it documented. And the little shortcuts we recommend, right? One that I can remember is we use awesomescreenshotrecording.com. Right? And I usually advocate to clients, while you're executing something, take the video and talk to your screen and make sure those videos
you probably have Loom. Loom's great for this as well.
I was going to say, what are your suggestions? Of Awesome Screenshots was an easy one for me.
That's a Chrome extension. If Shayna can use it, anyone can use it. That's not a dig. Technology is not your jam.
Technology is not my jam, even though we're developing it.
I think a lot of designers are already using Loom with or for clients. And so if you have that, there you go. Check. You already know how to do it.
Yeah. Try to capitalize on time that you're actually executing and doing a thing by just talking to the screen. And my recommendation is don't make those videos longer than 5 minutes, right? There's nothing worse in a training video in a written, documented kind of procedure to then go in and have an hour-long conversation about how you want invoicing done. Mm-hmm. Much better to fractionalize components of that, have one specifically for typing up that proposal, that first initial proposal, then go into a specific one about how you want your products, priced. And that's different for retail and wholesale, same for trades. Like really try to isolate those steps as you're doing them.
Good, better, best with everything. And good is I've recorded this and now my assistant, my team member, whatever that looks like for you, knows how to do it. Even better and moving toward best is, and I'm going to have them not only learn how to do it by themselves, but document it so that they could pass it off in the future, or so that there's a training document for this in the future. Spend the time now, and you will thank yourself when people inevitably turn over or you've grown again. You're at the next growth marker with the next employee, whatever that looks like for you. Great problems to have.
Yeah, you have to spend the time. It really, there's no avoiding it, right? You want a six-pack. You got to go to the gym. You have to show up every single day. It might take you 3 years to get that six-pack. It might take someone else a year. It kind of depends on what foundation they're showing up in that gym with. But you have to show up. You have to put in the time. There's no shortcut. There really isn't. With our team, I feel like we've had a couple clients come in with this really big, oh, you guys, you can fix us. We have this trust now that we can fix you. And that's awesome. Mm-hmm. But would you agree that it was matched with some expectation that they had to partake very little in the process? Like give us 5%, I feel of their time, and expect the 95%, basically 90% to happen?
I would say so, wanting a plug and play. And you will have to, you should remain. You are irreplaceable as the leader of your team, as the owner of your company, as the principal designer of your projects. Maybe in that way, you could collaborate with someone, but there are places that you're going to be irreplaceable. And no matter your growth marker, no matter how far down your journey you're going, no matter how much you grow, you want to leave yourself time to be that irreplaceable person in your company.
Yeah. And one thing that I will say that I think is super important to say is, as you create these processes in this organization, it will take more time than it's taking you now if you're at that growth marker where you're just starting to delegate. Going back to the not the idea, but going back to what's happening is you have created shortcuts and likely are in a flat fee of some kind. So you're trying to quote unquote beat a clock as well, because the lesser time it takes you, the more money or profitability you're kind of thinking in your head. So flat fees, I feel like, also get you into a mentality where we're trying to beat the clock. And so that's why I say in the beginning, when you fill up your plate and you're ready to delegate, you really have to look at that pricing model and return to process, because as you delegate more and create more systems, it will take more time. It's time you want happening. It's time into having those questionnaires, right? So that
it's time that pays you back.
Pays you back in the long run. Pays you back in time and gives your team the tools they need to succeed. If there's nothing to share with them and you're wanting support on selections and putting the board together, well, they're not in those client meetings. It is an option to integrate them in, of course. It's a total shortcut if you don't have questionnaires and a way to organize and archive what this client is saying to give you the support. But again, when you're the one-man show, you're the human filter. All the filters of what the client is saying live inside of you. And when it's perfect storm, when you're needing help and it's this perfect storm because you're so busy, you're also not having the pockets of time you need to communicate and give the team everything they need. So it really is this kind of torpedo effect where, just because you're integrating a team doesn't mean it's going to feel better in that growth marker. You're right in the heart of it. There is so much work that has to do. And it's why we've really been reworking our onboarding process. We've really shined a lens into our assistant onboarding process that we require, and how I'm reworking it, because I'm like, you know what, we need to invest way more time in the beginning, because most people we're working with, I would say 80% of clients working with us are at that foundational growth marker right in the beginning. Would you agree?
Totally. I would agree. And like you said, when you are just starting to delegate, it's the twofold challenge. It's the growth marker on both sides of knowing how you are going to show up for your team, how you're going to lead, how you're going to be accountable to what they need to you, while also figuring out what it is that makes the most sense to delegate, how you're going to do that. So it's a big one to tackle, and especially if you don't have a team in place that's experienced and able to help you meet those challenges.
Yeah. Do you have any like strongest memories thinking back to where I was like in that growth marker, overwhelmed, trying to figure it out? Is there any like big moment on your side of it where what I was feeling in terms of the emotions,
There's probably more. Here's
you.
what comes to my mind first.
Okay.
We'll see if this is what sticks. But I'm the first fractional employee at Shayna Interiors. I am coming on. I'm going to handle the e-com site, marketing, really stay in that lane. And Shayna's busy on her end. Great problem to have. But at one point, you forwarded me an email and said, can you handle this? And I'm a yes person. There are not many things that I can't handle, but it's a client I've never heard of. It's an order I have no idea what is going on for. And I literally just sent back, no, ... I cannot handle this. I cannot help you with this. More information will need to be have. And I feel like that's really illustrative of the fact that everything on your plate, there was just too much. You had to start trying to fire things that could get taken care of. And I feel like if I can't do it, who was going to be able to? Because I think I'm pretty good at jumping in and solving those problems in real time.
And if there's anyone who's going to understand and decode what the hell I'm saying, it's you. So, there's a problem. This comes to my epiphany this week, right? The who, what, where, whens, and whys.
It has already
so true
debuted.
though. No, because it's so easy to remember, and it's so true. When you're on the fly, you're trying to text, there's errors, voice note or translate to text, forward emails. Our brain, in our heads as owners, you think that you're like giving everything to this person that they need. But odds are you're cutting out like, I didn't even tell her who it was for. He was like, here you go. I don't even remember this, but here you go. But if I would have slowed down, and if I was coaching someone whose team is struggling to understand what you are asking from them every time you're communicating, then I would recommend you question, who is it for? What needs to get done? Where do they go to get it done? Which should be in your documented system of procedure. But if one does not exist yet, then you need to answer that. When do you need it done by? And the why really plugs in. They need to know the why through all of it, right? Why are we doing it this way? What's it connected to? What is that process? Really understanding the whys behind the who, what, where, when is going to really further dial in their comprehension to help you get it to the next step beyond what you're asking them at this present time. Right. What's happening and why it needs,
It'll also bring out of the woodwork what else needs to be created, because if the why you needed me to help with that is because, there's no tracking on these orders. And so this is why you need this answer. And this is where I need to go. It's like, oh, okay, what we also need is a great tracking system so that, maybe that's not the absolute best, analogy there, but the why will not only help them answer this question, but figure out how this question doesn't cross their plate again, because there's an answer already in place.
Yeah.
And I think this all kind of speaks to the next growth markers ongoing, because, when you first start to delegate and you're trying to bring on that team member, or potentially you're moving to a couple, maybe you're working with a fractional model, you understand that there's different skill sets, but now you're moving from I'm trying to delegate my workflow to I am trying to build a team strategically for different strengths, for different parts of my process. Now there's the growth marker of getting past that. And I think that one is a little harder to identify. Maybe you have support. You are starting to delegate. How did it feel for you, Shay, realizing like, oh, dang, one person can't be the full solution?
Right. Again, it went to control and money. I think we talked about that in kind of episode 1, where I was really focused on the financial aspect of it.
As you should be.
And what commitment what commitments I could get from people. So I'm like, someone's either going to need a part-time or full-time commitment. That's kind of what I was thinking in my head. And, we learned through that every human has strengths and weaknesses. So it's totally unfair. And another thing is, if you're feeling completely overwhelmed and you're just wanting support on all aspects, not isolated aspects, all aspects, then exactly how you feel is how you're going to make this assistant feel. And then matched with all these expectations that, like you said, Ev, we had to create the list for the first assistant I had and stay on top of her. Like, of course, because it's just as overwhelming for someone else as a one person assistant assisting on all the things as it feels for the one person, designer on the other side of things. And if you do have that, then you have to get really good at learning how to delegate clearly your priorities and understand that things run in a list. They can't do two things at once. When you've got a lot of projects, there are a lot of priorities that happen. And so that's the challenge with that. But I would simply say that growth marker 2, I would agree. You're at this point, you are developing core foundations that might be a little bit more simplified because we're trying to accelerate that baseline, and you're looking to fill your team around you. And at this point, you're probably looking to build a simple team. You'll plug people around your weaknesses and then around the things that you don't want to do. And then in buckets where, you are really good at it, but you just don't simply have the time. It probably goes in those 3 steps. So how you put your team around you will change, but you have that high level team that helps you work on foundation, your fractional CEO, COO, CMO, CFO. The 4 main, and you're going to be swinging through those people at different points. Then you really just need 3 dedicated assistant lanes. You need an administrative assistant, you need a design assistant, you need a marketing assistant. That's probably growth marker 2, and you could be there for a pretty long while building that team around you before you start swinging into growth marker 3.
Great. Talk about that. What's next?
Yeah. So then I would say once we establish that foundation, there are probably some trigger points in terms of volume, in hours of support that are needed a week. And what will happen is a similar repeat of if you had one employee with you feeling that sense of overwhelm, it can start to feel the same for these individual leaders beneath you. Mm-hmm. So then you have to start splicing out those responsibilities even more. Administratively, you need 4 main leads on that team. The design team typically would work a little bit differently in terms of having different leaders per project. One person to funnel and check work through. And then marketing, I would say, also depends on is a whole other growth marker journey.
I was just about to say, we're not even talking about all the marketing growth markers but happening at the same time, but that should probably be its whole
that's going to be its own thing. But depending on where you are in investing, I would say at this point, when you have this kind of full breadth of the team, you at least have 2 marketing assistants because that side just, in terms of copyright and just digital graphics and video are just 2 very strongly separated divides. So at minimum, you probably have 2 people on that side. So these lanes grow differently, but really it's about thinning out responsibilities. So if you are feeling like you're at growth marker 2 and things are dropping, or you're having to start set reminders, then that's your trigger that you need to start dividing leadership, which means we're returning to the system of procedure. We're returning to the pricing model. To enhance it, to really enhance it, to integrate all these players. Mm-hmm. And then likely you are really focusing on that task manager software, project management software to help you with the volume. And that's where one of these 4 administrators, what their job is, the main operations assistant who's helping you with proposals and client intakes and that journey invoicing them. And then once it closes, getting them set up in technologies, creating those schedules, and helping an owner start a week saying, this is what we need to do. This is what you need to accomplish this week. What are you taking on yourself? And the rest, I already know who to delegate to because we have defined roles on this team. And then once you splice out all that leadership, then you go into growth marker 4, which is now you have your leadership foundation who has fully developed the training manual for your company that can take responsibility for updating the system of procedure, creating more efficiencies. It's ever growing, it's ever changing. New things are coming out all the time, AI, new tech. And now they own and lead that lane. And any support coming in underneath that is their responsibility to manage ultimately.
Yeah. And then, not to throw a wrench in this whole equation, but even when you get your whole team, just working smoothly, everything feels great, there's going to be other ideas for the business, ways you want to diversify, new service offerings you want to offer. There's always
your team's going to change.
Totally.
Yeah. And your team's going to change.
And you go back to the drawing board with all of it because you need to have that same foundation, that same system that works for each of these branches that you might, go into in the future.
Right. And that's also the very strong importance of creating these documents. Even as you're going, you have to do it. That's okay. We all get stuck in that point. And again, it doesn't feel good, but anything
I promise it feels better than working backwards. Doing it at the right time feels better.
Yeah. You don't want to wait 28 years. It feels even worse at that point because now you have 28 years of habits that you have to break as well with what you're doing. And again, just really driving home, you are not wanting to build a team that you are reliant on the people of your team. You want to build a team that's surrounded by process, that your current team is helping document and create. So the ifs, if the things happen, right? If they have an emergency, if they get sick, if they need to go on maternity leave, if they got another opportunity that they're leaving you for, it's not setting you off to spiral again. It's not one of those are one of the problems that you actually can control. And that's what you have to also identify when you're feeling these problems, which is great. Growth marker, yay, you're probably super busy and we've got to do some work right now.
I would hope from listening to this conversation, from hearing us talk and really hit the nail on the head of growth marker, growth marker, growth marker, from having a little bit of a preview into what growth markers may be coming for you, I hope you will not wait until it's a crisis. Start to identify these problems when it feels like, that could have been a little bit better, or I think that project could have been a bit more profitable, or wow, why did I have to send this email twice? Don't wait until it's a crisis, until your brain is on fire, as Shayna would say, because that's the hardest time to work through these. It's the hardest time to be solution oriented. It's the hardest time to stay calm and look at yourself and not place blame. All these things that we're saying lead to a more successful growth marker are much more challenging. Wouldn't you agree? Once it's too far gone.
Yeah. I mean, I think what happens too is we get so stuck on the money that usually that's what's leading our decision-making processes. And then things get really busy and the money's looking good and you need this help, but you have no time to really invest in it. So if you can get ahead of it, I mean, ideally, there should always be that executive high-level partnership around you. Whatever that looks like, whether it's just the coach who's helping you with the strategy and helping you talk through because you have the time to get it done, great. And or put the team around you that can help execute. So sometimes we have clients like that where, we're working on foundation because they see the future of growth, but they have the time to get it done. So we're like, let's just talk through what needs to be done. This is going to be way more cost effective for you to put in the work and then arrive at the next meeting for us to look at it and go through it. Versus also as that person grows, it becomes way more easy for executive support to be able to jump in as that person gets busy and just get it done. Right. So, I thought I was going to have time to create that welcome packet for my, onboarding funnel for my client, but things are getting really busy and I just don't, can you guys get it done for me? Yes. Right. So, Time is essential. If you can get ahead of it, you should always be working on the foundation of the company. It never stops. And as you grow, even more time gets put into the consistent. If you're going to be in that growth mindset and be in a constant state of growth, there's no freaking avoiding it. It is what it is. You're constantly working on it. You're constantly creating them. And that volume and growth track is different for everyone. So it might take longer periods of time. You might feel like you develop foundation, then you have kind of like moments of stillness where you're kind of working through, analyzing, and then you're returning, or you're under fire. You're so freaking busy. It's never stopping. And you have to create a routine inside of your schedule to show up, or else it's going to feel like it's not succeeding.
Yeah. And some business owners might be sitting there like, no, I'm totally willing to show up. I actually don't know what foundation is next for me. What should I be working on? Call us. We can help you set that schedule for yourself, whether we are or are not helping you achieve it, because that's also another kind of paralysis, is that decision making of like, where do I go next? What do I develop next? And sometimes you just need to talk it out with someone else who is also thinking in that business owner brain with your best interest at heart.
I totally agree. And I think also, because of my experience with having the cheerleader, and we talked about that in episode 1, I think maybe I've heard a few feelings on calls. I'll say that, and I'm not trying to put down what anyone wants to do. I just really like to lens it and create a priority of where you are currently in the business. A hot and heavy one I can think of is the website, totally. Like just feeling so stuck on needing to totally rebrand that website and focusing like that's the problem with your lead gen or something like that, when or a process, when we're like so far from that stage and the business doesn't have that much cash coming in, we don't want to put it there. We're not going to yes you to death. We're going to share, and you're the owner. We'll always say you're the boss. You can make the decision, but we're going to be totally transparent in what we think your next steps should look like. You want to override that. I've had clients do that. I think we might have mentioned Brianna Williams. We'll definitely have her on this show because she did that to me. She really challenged me when she first started working with me on her flat fee pricing model, and that it worked. And basically the compromise was to layer in just a few protections in that contract when I read it, to give herself a maximum hour allocation, to just put some clauses in there.
Right. Because I can sell this.
She's like, no, this is worked for me. This is right. And I'm like, okay, fine. But this is what we need to do in your contract, because you can't control people. I know you can control yourself, but you can't control people. And there's nothing in this contract that's protecting you from locking down a boundary and getting yourself out of a deal you no longer want to be into. Sometimes that contract end is the best thing possible thing that could have happened to you. And I'll never forget the call when she called me and she was like, thank God. I need to thank you. Thank God we put that contract clause in there. I needed to use it. I did go for that upsell. She didn't go for it, but thank God I could have just
washed my hands of it. Yeah, exactly. And what? That brings me to such an interesting thought that I want to hear your opinion on, because a lot of these growth markers that we've been talking about kind of happen chronologically, or happen in an order, or they're a little bit obvious. Either your pipeline is full and you're busy, or you're not. But there are also some growth markers that I think get written off as just part of the job or the price of doing business. They could get missed as just, certain things like that. And I think boundaries tends to be one of those. So can you talk about that and what that feels like as the business owner and how to recognize it?
Yeah. It goes back to habits we create in that first pre-growth marker and first growth marker, where you're just selling to close. And once you get the money, you're like, okay, setting the boundaries are done, right? And then they just execute, and you build relationships with clients. You don't drop any boundaries. You don't return to the contract to look at what the heck the scope was actually supposed to be, what the suggesting furnishing quantity count was supposed to be, what it ended at. And scope creep just always happens. They fall in love working with you, and it becomes a what else can you solve for me, which makes sense. And then you build this really tight relationship. Everyone wants to be friends usually. They want to grab a drink. They want to go to dinner. And then you start to feel really uncomfortable as well. And then you start to feel taken advantage of. And if you don't stop yourself, and if you don't realize that these are boundaries you yourself have to set, then you start to lose your passion for the industry, and you start forgetting why you're even in this to begin with.
Yeah, that burnout feeling.
Oh, that's because they're sucking the life from you and you feel taken advantage of, but they're not taking advantage of you. You didn't set your boundaries. You were allowing the kids jumping on the sofa. You never told them that that is just a no-go. They're just going to keep jumping on the sofa. You know, it's the same thing. Oh, can you just come into this room and give me your advice? Oh, do you think you could just order my TV? Do you think you could just pick out my sheets? And yes, I can. However, this was not in the scope, and I do want to outline what those additional costs would look like to pre-approve from you before I press go.
Yeah.
Or, you know, here are a couple suggestions of where you could shop, you know, and you can do that on your own. You know, boundaries is a whole conversation I feel like we could have about how to navigate and facilitate. I'll give one suggestion, and then we'll probably have a podcast about it, but I'm a big person of A's and B's. A's and B's. We can, you know, yes, I can pick the sheets and purchase the TV. I will have to reduce sourcing the accessories or whatever that's defined in the scope. I can swap those out and I can execute that, and we can stay inside the lines of the pricing I provided, or no problem. I can definitely add this on. This is what that expectation of time roughly is going to look like. Please let me know how you want to proceed. A's and B's. Always, here's how you stay inside the lines, or I can absolutely fall outside the lines and do what you want me to do, or outside of my process because you want me to go to a showroom. But these are the outlined costs. And that's where having an assistant team, the psychology of having more people on your team to help facilitate these conversations around money that you don't want to have is helpful.
Oh yeah. And even if you're not even at that growth marker yet, you know, I won't throw this person's name out there just in case they wouldn't want it. But I worked with a designer on her website who had a fully fake employee listed on the Meet the Team page because when she wanted to send an invoice, she wanted it to come from Mike. She didn't want it to come from her. It was uncomfortable. And so, you know, she wasn't at that growth marker yet to start delegating to have that team, but she also wanted those protections of those boundaries. And I think that, you know, like you make it work, but that is one of those unseen growth. Like, let's rattle off some of those red flags. My client is texting me. My client is shopping me. What else? Like, these are the things where people are just customer service oriented. They want a great review. They want their clients to be happy. But this is an underlying growth marker that I don't want for you.
Yeah, no. At some point, you have to get off the yes train. And when you first start in growth marker 1, you're just on that yes train. Every possible dollar of opportunity that's coming your way, you're yesing, rightly so. You know, all the money's coming to you. You need to make a living. And it's just yes, 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 yes. But eventually you've got to get off that train, especially when you start paying out. When you start paying out, you're going to really feel the burden of you breaking those boundaries, or allowing, which still makes it you, the client, to break the boundaries. It is your process. It's your company. We don't let the client control that. And it's another thing that I see a lot. And if they want to control that, then changing and knowing how to have the conversation with the client that says, hey, it feels like you would feel better kind of controlling the process and falling outside of my process. And that's totally fine if you want to lead, but we're going to need to transition into an open scope agreement to understand that I cannot outline expectations of time with you leading. And that's fine. I'm going to work off of your priorities and your process, but really transferring them into this hourly billing, because we can only estimate what's inside of our control. And the second you have a client that's trying to lead, take over, or break boundaries, we need to notify them, point back to the contract, tell them it's okay. But some clients are going to be like, no. I'm sorry. That's totally fine. Let's go back to your process. I want to stay inside the lines, right? And regain control. Because most clients, when you put money on the table, like, this is going to cost a lot more time to move forward in this direction. Most, not all, there are definitely the clients out there that can more than afford to just have it done their way and their lead time, and they'll pay rush and overtime for the term for the team to move faster. But most people want to stay very closely inside the lines of what you've outlined initially.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I think in saying there's always going to be growth markers, there's always going to be challenges, like that's not meant to get you down on your journey of business ownership. It's real, it's honest, but we're also here to talk about how you can meet those with as much preparation as possible. So talk to me about what you would want a designer to know about that process, that inevitable process that must be tackled of reflecting, giving yourself that feedback, iterating on what you're doing. How do you coach someone through that critical moment towards growth?
Yeah. So, personally, if I identify maybe my mental journey, which would translate to clients, is first you've got to define the problem, because it might, just like muscle pain, it might be centered around somewhere nowhere near the location of pain. So we have to define the problem. Then we have to create the strategy for getting us out of that problem, or ensuring we just don't hit that problem again, right? Sometimes, most problems are good problems. They don't feel good, but they are really good when you're in it, if we spend the time correctly to figure out where it's coming from and what that strategy is. Then after that, you have to share that strategy with your leadership team, whatever that looks like. Here's the problem. Here is what I'm thinking that strategy is. The 8 paper plates, that brain dump it, send it over. We're going to talk about these plates on the meeting type of a situation. Share the strategy to make it make sense to your leadership team, because depending on what leader you are, and talking about Power Talk Friday and that predictive index, which I took myself, I got my results. It couldn't have been more closely accurate to who I am in terms of having that visionary, having that strategy. So that might be you. You might have that in you already, but you're missing the person who's going to execute and get it all done. Like my predictive index was just like, often she will miss the details or not be the one to execute. 100%. That's why I have to have the meeting to share the strategy, so that my implementers can get my brain and then start implementing. And then it becomes a cycle of implementation and revision, right? Mm-hmm. And you have to stay sticky to that.
I think, tell me if I'm wrong, I think in our recent 4D Biz history, one of our growth markers that I was really proud of how we turned it around and created something out of it was our core values, and how we now really can articulate to our clients exactly what we stand for, exactly what they can expect from us. We just didn't have that shared language for that. And I'm really happy with how our core values turned out. And I'm realizing now they all really did come from different growth markers in our business and how we wanted to approach those. So let's go into that a little bit and talk about kind of how they came to be.
Yeah. Let me just say these core values definitely came out of a growth marker pain point internally, with what I felt like maybe clients not having realistic expectations. Same thing on our side with our staffing side. There was just a lot of misalignment, I felt like. And it wasn't that we were misaligned at the beginning. It's that we would need to realign as clients grow. So as I'm pacing around in the garage, because that's where I was at the time, where I was thinking through what these core values were going to be, I also was it needs to be, accountability was my main word as well. Right. We also need to show up and stay accountable for where we can be better and what we need to do to set the expectation properly with clients.
And I think it also comes from with growing our team. And I feel like that's, a growth marker that we've consistently had to hit as we meet different levels of success and different clients that need different things from us. But it goes back to what you were saying about everyone has to know the why. We can't ask them to make decisions the way we would, or to know what we know, or to think the way we think, until we share our why. And in creating these core values, it gave us a really strong vocabulary for when you're faced with a critical decision. If you can think through these things, which we're about to, introduce, you will be thinking the way that we are thinking. You'll be making decisions in a way that we stand by. And before we had that, we couldn't really blame someone when they made a critical, made a decision or made an executive decision on a task that we didn't stand for,
Yeah. Yeah. So let's drop the core values.
Yeah.
And then kind of we can take them from like both of our perspectives. But the acronym is ACT.
Shayna loves an acronym.
I love an acronym.
I'm an alliteration girl. I like an alliteration. Shayna loves an acronym.
I know. So double A, double C, double T. So alignment, accountability, communication, consistency, team, and trust. So we'll jump into alignment. Ev, what are, on your takeaway, what is alignment mean to you?
Yeah, I have a feeling, I could be wrong. I have a feeling as we go through these, my perspective is also a lot of times going to be about what I want our team performing.
Totally.
And I think you usually come from like the business owner and what you want them to feel, which I think is such a great way for our brains to, collaborate.
That's why I'm like, let me hear yours and mine. Cause I definitely thought the same, like she's going to hit it from one side. I'm going to hit it from another. So alignment.
Alignment. For me, that means that our team is our client's team. We are not giving them the 40 biz way or performing their tasks in a set in stone way. We are going to learn about you, your business, your version of success, your template that you love and what you want to deliver, and work in alignment with what you need, expect, or want. And I think that's really important in terms of, there are virtual assistant services out there. There's Fiverr, there's whatever, but they're not really integrating into your team to do things your way. And that's what I always want us to be very committed to.
Yeah. For me, you're so right. On the, on that alignment side, it's also a lot of realignment as well. So on the client side, we meet you with where you are, and then that journey migrates, right? So
you hit your growth
for
markers.
me, that alignment, for me, it means, and it's how we promoted Samantha, that having a fractional operations officer is just a given thing when you're in an assistant contract. Even if you're not in an executive partnership with us and working with our C-suite team, Samantha is just always embedded to be able to communicate on a high level and really check in on two sides. Because in the beginning, we're profiling, what your right nows are, but we're also profiling your maybe laters and definitely happening in the future. So that alignment is Samantha reaching out and checking in, right? It's also reaching out and checking in on your team and your team's growth, and aligning that your staffing is working correctly, you have the right people on your team, or as you're climbing in hours, do we need to start integrating more support to consistently hit the mark, which we'll get into that next. So I think that kind of leads into
accountability. I think we should just also say there are a lot of crooks out there. That's one of our terms. There are a lot of crooks. And I feel like accountability for me was really making sure that everyone knows that is not us. We are going to track down to the 0.01. We are going to take ownership if we make a mistake. We are a team of humans. It's not that we can, expect or guarantee perfection, but if we miss a detail, if you have to tell us something twice, if we make an error, which humans are known to do, we will take ownership of that. And I feel like that also, I don't want to offend anyone, but a female-owned business, it's the men in business a lot of times that just don't want to take accountability, and we're not going to do that to you.
Yeah, we won't swing into that, but accountability, it means a lot, right? Like, I don't think we've ever had another business who's screwed up or had to redo or hit the mark ever give us back a single freaking penny. Never have we ever got a single
that didn't
back.
Go well. Let me make it right means so much.
You're so right. Let me just get it done for you, no cost, right? Nothing like that. We're so different. We really take that accountability. It's why we built our technology so that not only clients can stay in control of what's going on, but we can too. So that if you're like, this was a miss, you know, or something happened, I asked for, you know, this edit, but I didn't get the right edit back. Okay, well, guess what? That 0.23 time log, we're crediting it back in, and they're going to redo it and get it done correctly. And we even have buttons, you know, to report to us. Samantha is there on a daily basis reading through incoming messaging, and we've coached her to be like, if someone says, you know, where is this? Or just checking in, you go dive deep into the weeds and figure out what's going on, you know, so we can catch it, but we also have that accountability to notify us on your side with a report quality control issue button that becomes top priority. And even if that deadline is today, you've got the executive team on it, staffing it, making sure that we hit the mark for you so you don't have to worry.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like accountability might be like what sets us apart the most. I hope it is. I hope our clients would agree with us on that one.
Yeah.
Okay, this one might speak for itself, but let's do it anyway. Communication. What does it mean to you, Shay?
You know, I said this with Luann, you know, team of nags, right? Like we try to be a team of nags. Nagging is negative in your house, positive on this team. We try to have a very high level of communication. For us, I think this year we've done a really strong lens. You know, when we originally started, we're like, everyone's got to communicate in our 40 Biz portal, you know, and then we've gotten a little bit looser, and now, you know, super loose, right? Communication definitely
happens where it works for the business owner.
Exactly, right? So profiling who that person is. And once we got our own phone system that could text and make calls, you know, Evelyn experienced clients that she would not be able to receive an email for them for days, and then all of a sudden texting just kind of hit the mark. So, you know, we do have boundaries and protocols around that, but I think at this point we have every communication style that we could offer to ensure that that communication is funneling in the way that it works for you.
Right. And that was a growth marker for us, you know, it just, if we don't make it work for the business owner, it won't work for us. Our team won't succeed because they're not getting what they need. And I think finally, like, just realizing that and allowing that and giving ourselves that freedom to say, okay, let's start working within the bounds of, you know, what this client needs, was a huge success in terms of communication. And communication to me also means expectations. If you know what to expect, then you are starting out on a level ground. You know, if we always will let you know when you can expect something from us, how long, you know, you would expect something to take. I think communication is not only about the back and forth of getting the answers, but the expectations that are set up front.
Yeah. And let's go back to how we saw it was a problem. That communication, we had clients that it just wasn't working. Communicating in our portal, Slack, and email, they still were not succeeding in. And it's those clients that challenge you in your process and challenge you in the way you're thinking. And it really was Deb Ellis who did a lot of the challenging. I mean, one of, you know,
shout out Deb.
So, shout out Deb. Love you. You challenged the out of me, and she will come on this show one day, but she challenged me in the perfect way, in the way to really question my theories, you know, what I believed in. And she was right. You know, for her, she's in the car, she can't voice command to Slack and be like, Slack, you know, call 40. And so it was a challenge for her. And that's what made me be like, no, we need phones, we need extensions, we need texting. And we're still working through ways that we can enhance that even further for someone who's just a very phone-based, texty person who feels like they need that instant response, like they want someone physically there, but they don't want to pay the 40 hours. And you also probably don't even need the 40 hours.
Right.
You know,
it's literally just the communication that you need.
Yeah.
I totally agree. That brings us to our second C, consistency. I keep saying this about every single core value, but I'm like, this is a big one for me.
They're all here with intent. They're all here with intent.
Totally.
But yeah.
Consistency.
So, go for it,
we
Deb.
will do what we say we're going to do. You can rely on us. A deadline is non-negotiable. Like everything that, you know, I feel should be non-negotiable in business, but in so many experiences we've had have not been treated that way. That consistency of when someone says they're going to do something, I don't have to check in and make sure it will be delivered. I know it's going to be there.
Yeah. I mean, consistency in every way, right? When
Yeah.
you develop a process, you have to consistently commit to that. The way
Yeah.
you share your client notes, you need to consistently do that. Everything needs to be consistent. Yes, you're going to reinvent and enhance and implement new things, but you've got to lock in those habits and then get consistent with them. And that's going to take 30 days maybe, you know?
Right. I think with our fractional model too, like working with multiple team members or, there's a little bit of hesitancy that comes there. So one other thing that's really important with consistency for me is you are working with 40 biz and there's a consistency that comes with that. We name our files the same way. If you've given us a password 6 months ago, it's not your job to go hunt that down and give it to the next we will be consistent as a 40 biz team to work in a way that you can know what to expect.
Yeah, and we're going to consistently show up. And something that I think for, other competitors, I mean, we have clients that are working with us on the executive side and they are using assistants with someone else. And again, I'm going to bring up Brianna
hiring
Williams.
in-house.
Yeah, because Brianna Williams was a perfect story of this because whatever assistant team she was using, when that assistant left, they didn't have anyone for her. She had this whole big dead period and she was like, I think I need you. Price point wise, it was an overseas company. So it was again about the money. It was like, way cheaper Philippines support, right? But they couldn't transition with her in those gaps. And then she just had no one. And that's where we are consistently hiring. We consistently have an HR person who's vetting talent. We consistently have people in training. And when we get Hannah Lowe on here and she shares how long she's been with us and how many teams and people she's transitioned through without feeling a single hiccup in her day, that's what consistency is that's how we show our clients consistency. We will always have your back. I mean, we have a situation right now where I was letting one of our staff members go fly out to New York to support an install that a designer was on. There was an internal situation that happened. That assistant lost confidence in the owner, and within 24 hours, we have a car rented. We've got Kara going out there for 48 hours doing one night there. We've got Logan getting on a flight on Friday to fly out there and take over through the weekend and leave on Tuesday. And none of that is a burden to Eva at all. Yeah. None of it. All that cost we absorb because, again, going back to accountability, we're going to hold ourselves accountable. I said, let's give it a shot and see what happens. I don't know if we'll ever be doing this again. Growth marker, trying something new. Yep. But we're consistent for her. We're communicating with her. She feels confident for us, even though within 24 hours this all happened and we've got Logan flying out in like 4 days. We're there, and that probably leads into the next kind of, team accountability, the next team and trust. We can really combine them together because when it ties everything.
Perform all of these core values consistently, we will become your team and we will earn your trust. If you have ever worked with someone that stayed in alignment with what you really needed, took accountability on any mistakes, communicated with you, were consistent with you, I bet you still work with them or wish you did. That's trust building. And that is, what will take our team to truly become indispensable to yours.
Yeah. Trust on both sides.
Yeah.
Right. Trust that you're going to get what you need. Trust that we are going to show up for you. Trust that we're here to listen to the challenges, make personnel swaps, integrate new people on, and trust that we're going to stand by everything that we say, which is we are holding ourselves accountable. You are not going to need to bear any cost in team transitions, training. We are your insurance policy. We are going to communicate with you throughout. And simply, we will always be there. I have some clients that are like, you're not going to sell out and be gone, right? I just got a text the other day, at 2 a.m., go to sleep, but panicking, I just really thought about it. And I don't know what I would do without you. Please, I can see you growing. Are you going to leave me? Again, this is Hannah and we'll bring her on. I'm like, Hannah, I'm not going anywhere. This is the very beginning for us. And maybe some people in the future will not get a chance to work with me, but certainly people who are around me now, I am a constant and I will be consistent, and you will always be able to communicate with me. And that's it. It's like trust bond. I'm a very loyal person. Like I'm not going to leave you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I would say that's one of our most recent growth markers that we've really worked through and succeeded through. I invite you, whoever's listening, to really reflect on yours. What little challenges are you facing right now? What things could work better? Really take that as an opportunity. Don't see it as a problem. Take it as an opportunity to be creative, to solve a problem. And please lean on us if you need support through that.
Yes. And don't dwell on the past. Let it go. So much time spent, I don't want to even say wasted, so much time in development, technology that you don't even see, landing pages and content you don't even see anymore.
Outside sales teams that I cannot name.
Oh, yes.
Mistakes have been made. You know, that's part of it.
It can be easy to sit and dwell. I just encourage you to just wake up, let it go, restart, and keep moving forward, even when it feels impossible. Maybe you're filled with anxiety. You've got personal life happening. You've got business where you've got to show up for. You've got clients down your throat. It's not easy. Give yourself grace through that process. Let go of what you can, focus on what you can control, identify those problems, and solve, and just keep going. That's it. Just keep going.
Just keep going.
Just keep going. As we wrap up today's episode, we hope you're walking away with a new perspective on growth markers. The real, sometimes uncomfortable, but always transformative moments that shape your business journey. If anything we shared resonates with you, you're not alone. Every designer faces these challenges, and every challenge is a chance to grow.
Remember, whether you're just starting out, feeling overwhelmed by delegation, or working to build a stronger team, you have the power to turn those obstacles into opportunities. Take a moment to reflect on where you are right now, what's working, what's not, and what small step you can take today to move forward.
If you're ready to take the next step in your business journey, schedule a free consultation with us at fordesignerbusiness.com or click the consultation link in the show notes for this episode.
Don't forget, the journey is ongoing. Keep documenting your processes, leaning into your core values, and giving yourself grace as you grow.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of For Designer Business. We're here cheering you on as you break through your next growth marker, and we can't wait to celebrate your progress and success along the way. Until next time, keep designing and keep dreaming.